In this video I will be framing the first floor walls and second floor joists on my own. First, I mark all of the perimeter walls with a chalk line. When the garage floor was poured, I didn't install anchor bolts, so the concrete could be made smoother. Now I need to drill holes in the concrete for anchors. I started the holes with a 3/8 inch stone bit to make a pilot hole, then finished drilling with a 1/2 inch masonry bit. The anchors have a ring that expands when you hammer them into the hole. A pressure-treated sill plate needs to have holes drilled in it to fit over the anchors. I placed the sill plate on the chalk line and used my speed square to mark where the anchors are located, then measure from the edge of the plate to get the center of where the hole needs to be drilled. I used a 5/8 inch forcer drill bit to drill my holes, but any type of bit would work. Sill seal is a foam product that comes in a roll that fills the gap between the concrete and the sill plate. It will keep air, moisture, and bugs out. The sill plate can now be placed onto the anchors. Washers and nuts are put onto the anchors, and then they are tightened down. Now that the bottom plate has been installed, the stud locations can be marked every 16 inches. On this project, I am framing with a staggered double stud wall, so I added a second bottom plate. The studs on the inner wall are offset 8 inches from the studs on the outer wall. My corner is made from a 2x4 and a 2x6 that are nailed together before setting it in place. The end is cut square and then cut to length on the chop saw after it is nailed together. The corner is nailed to the bottom plate. Then a permanent diagonal brace is added between the inner and outer wall to keep it vertical. A horizontal brace is added 5 feet off the floor that will be used as a nailer for the wall studs, and it will also add strength to the wall. I pre-cut all of the pieces that I needed for a window opening, and laid them out in the order that they needed to be installed. The first pieces are braced in 2 directions, to make sure the wall stays plumb. The framing is similar to standard construction, except for everything being double, and there is plywood connecting the inner and outer walls together. On the part of the house where I previously did my framing, I know that all of the walls are level and straight, so I cut all of the studs to the same length for all of the perimeter, and nailed them at the bottom and also to the horizontal brace. In the garage where I am framing onto the concrete slab, I needed to get my stud lengths another way. The concrete elevation varies a little, so I set a string at each end of the wall that was level. I was then able to mark a line on each of the studs to get an exact length to cut them to. The garage door headers are made up of two double 2x12s that are separated by spacer blocks that hold them to the 8.5-inch wall thickness. The door going into the garage also has the same size header, because it has a large supporting beam for the second floor sitting over it. Once the inner and outer wall studs are all set, a top plate is added, and then plywood is added to hold both of the walls together. I had salvaged timbers from the barn that was standing in this spot previously. I'm using this 22-foot, 8x8 barn beam in the garage to support some of my second floor joists. Lifting a 460-pound beam by myself was a challenge, but by lifting one end at a time, and not trying to do it all at once, I was able to put it into place. I'm using i-joists that are spaced 16 inches on center. I nailed the bottom flange to the top plate on each end. I added the rim joist, and then used my speed square to make sure the joists are vertical, then nailed them in place. Squash blocks are added to both sides of each joist. They are slightly longer than the depth of the joist to prevent deformation of the web, which would reduce its strength. Nailer blocks are added to the other top plate. I'm using a spacer to make sure each one is exactly 1.5 inches from the edge of the wall. The rim joist is then added and nailed into the blocks. I have a couple of 2x6s temporarily screwed to the outside wall so I don't drop the joist off the edge of the building. I'm using my jigsaw to cut notches in some blocking that will fit around the flanges of my i-joists. This blocking is added 16 inches on center on the side walls and is nailed through the rim joist. The web of the i-joist is not strong enough for a structural connection, so I cut blocks to nail through. More blocking was added between the floor joist across the entire building. These ones are staggered from each other to make nailing easier. They will keep the joist vertical and maintain the 16-inch spacing. Adding these will also make the floor less bouncy. Thank you for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. Watch for my next video that will show the installation of the second floor plywood on my own.